In order, on whatever the date is, December 12th?
11th.
First order of business would be superintendent's report.
Good. Thanks, John. Can you hear me in the back? Yes, good. I have a number of items to give, and then I want to begin by once again thanking the Belmont High School Madrigals, their director, Sean Landers. Also with us tonight is Amanda Oda, who is a member of the Madrigals. They just performed for us from 7 o'clock to 7:30. They will be performing throughout the town and I believe outside the town over the next few days prior to the holiday season. As I said, there are a number of items I want to review with the school committee, or at least mention to the school committee. The first is that the Globe Northwest on November 29th talked about, before the dance, a deal, contracts, aid schools and students in efforts to reduce substance abuse. And it mentions a number of schools, including Belmont High School, Arlington High School, the pictures of Arlington High School, talking about the contract that the students make that's signed by the students and by their parents regarding alcohol and other controlled substances. And so we talked to Mike Harvey, the principal at the high school, and I think the first dance went very well. It was, December 1st, and so it went very nicely. Amanda, I don't know if you had any comments on it. Were you there? Or?
Yes, I was there. It was the senior dance, so it went really, really well.
Okay, terrific. So it was a senior dance, and was pretty well attended?
Yes, I think everyone but 3 people came.
Oh, great. Well, that's a great turnout. A number of items in the national news. The Wall Street Journal recently did a study. It was called How to Get into Harvard, dated November 30th. What they did was, there are a number of studies of schools and their effectiveness. This one, they start off by saying no ranking of high schools is perfect, and this one offers a cross-section rather than an exhaustive appraisal of college admissions. For their survey, they chose 8 colleges that have an average admission selectivity of 18% and whose applicants had reading and math SAT scores in the 1350 to 1450 range. The colleges are Harvard, Princeton, MIT, Williams, so that's 3 from the state of Massachusetts, Pomona, Swarthmore, University of Chicago, and Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore. What they did was then track the schools that sent the highest number of kids to these very high-performing districts. As you might imagine, most of the schools were independent schools, but among the very few public schools mentioned was Belmont High School. We had 12 students attending those universities, colleges and universities in the year in which this data was taken, which I believe was 2006. Also, U.S. News and World Report did a study of effectiveness of schools. What they did was look at schools particularly based on the achievement of all students, not just the highest ranking students, but all students, particularly those students of racial minority and academically disadvantaged. They had a number of 100 schools, public high schools from across the country that were in the gold category. There were 4 or 5 from Massachusetts, and then in the silver category, Belmont was in that group, along with Acton-Boxborough and Boston Latin Academy and a number of other places. So if you're interested in that information, it's called the Best High Schools 2008 Search, and it's dated Friday, November 30th, 2007. Members of the school committee, or a member of the school committee, asked me to report on the lockdown drills. We have performed the lockdown drills at 2 of our schools, Belmont High School and Chenry Middle School. They have gone very well. The police have been in when we've done these, and they've worked with the school administrators to make sure that things have gone well, and they've always a few ideas of how things might go a little bit better. We have not yet done them at the elementary schools, and the elementary principals are here tonight. The main reason that we haven't yet done this, and we're still trying to figure out how to do it, is that the doors don't lock. So we can't have a real lockdown if the doors don't lock in the classroom. So that is a thing that we need to try to figure out. We'll talk to the police about that, but that's that's a difficulty. And in fact, at 2 or 3 of the schools, the doors open outward instead of inward. So there was no way to jam the doors, for example, to prevent someone from coming in. So anyway, pass that information on. Also, another one of the things that's very positive, we had 91 students from Belmont High School who were inducted into the National Honor Society. John Losman is the advisor. The students, 4 students gave talks: John Smart, Meg Zollner, Lily Wong, and Danny Selgrade. And then there were some musical performances, and then the guest speaker was Eric Berg of the Science Department. I thought it was a very wonderful evening, and it went very, very well. And congratulations to these 91 students and to their parents for this singular honor. There are a number of other student awards that I'd ask Pat to comment on.
We have 3 in particular. The first group of awards comes to us through the announcement of William Papaziz is pleased to inform us of 41 students from Belmont High School who were accepted to participate in the Mass Music Educators Association Northeast District Music Festival. And these students are in 4 categories: band, jazz ensemble, chorus, and orchestra. If you'll bear with me, I'll try and get through the names. And from the band category, Karen Akasaka, Christina Baboyan, Scott Baker, Hunter Bennett, Catherine Choi, Winston Hill, Jenny King, Zoya Kaufman, Alex Kozmiakov, Tim Lachesi, Dick Manos, Annie Yang. For jazz ensemble, Isaac Hasselkorn. For chorus, Gabrielle Campagnoni, David Olakis, Matthew Gallagher, Isabella Gamble, Hillary John, Kelsey King, Robert Knoll, Jackson Lowry, Astor Nielsen, Edward Paulo, Jessica Carlin, Vince Picone, Catherine Rudman, Jacob Scharfman, Gabe Stahlberg, Charles Sullivan, Franklin Tucker, Alexander White, and Menfei Wu. And for orchestra, Jiawei Chang, Catherine Dooley, Narissa Gogos, Nathaniel Meyer, Jansen Pan, Anna Stromer, Leslie Wolf, Lily Wong, and Rosanna Yo. And we congratulate those students for their accomplishments. We also heard from Liz Smith, who's our drama teacher, and she took 24 students to the New England Theater Conference, which was held in Waterville Valley, New Hampshire. And a number of students came away from that conference with awards because of their work through workshops and practicum in acting, singing, dancing, and theater production. For outstanding vocalist, Isabella Gamble. For outstanding set design, Chris Knobloch, Chrissy Yip, Holly Schredrup, and Jess Meyer. For best costume design on a director's concept, Abby Tapper. For excellence in theater set design model, Holly Schredrup, Chrissy Yip, Gabe Campagnoni, and Gabriella Grimaldi. And, that was for outstanding lighting design as well. And the last announcement comes to us from Mr. Harvey, who shared with us wonderful information regarding an AP Scholar Award for one of our students. And the letter reads, on behalf of the Massachusetts Department of Education, it's my pleasure to inform you that the College Board has granted its State AP Scholars Award. To be a State AP Scholar recipient, it is truly an outstanding academic achievement. There is only 1 male and 1 female student in the state out of 34,844 public and private school students in Massachusetts who took over 60,000 exams. Of all of those, only 2, as I said, are granted this award, and the person who received the award is Emily Makavicius. So congratulations to Emily and to her family.
Emily's a freshman at University of Chicago this year. She graduated from Belmont High last year. It's really a very wonderful honor for her and her family, and also for Belmont High School. There are a number of items that I've asked Jerry to talk about. One is, just briefly, the fees for 2008-09, outsourcing food services, and the Wellington boiler.
Thank you, Dr. Holland. As we proceed through a very difficult budget development process, we will be reviewing all of our fees that we charge. We feel already that we will be raising the transportation bus fee. The reason for the timing on that is our 3-year contract is about to come to an end, and we have to go out to bid for a new contract. And we expect about a 10% increase in the price as the contractors adjust to market conditions. So to keep the fee proportional to the total cost of the busing, the fee will also go up. We don't have an exact amount yet, but we'll have a number worked out for the school committee when we present the budget in January. Another fee, which has not been changed for quite a while, which we will be examining, would be our building rental fee. This affects the after-school programs, the KED programs, and any outside rental. We do not have figures on that yet. We'll do a study of comparable communities but we are fairly certain that in the January, February, we will be announcing a fee increase for building rentals. There's been a committee studying outsourcing food services. We met back in the spring going into the summer. We kind of took a recess for the summer and with the intention of coming back together this fall to wrap up our recommendation and make a recommendation to the superintendent. We have not been able to reconvene because of the time commitment for the budget process, but I expect to have that committee come together again for 1 or 2 more wrap-up meetings early in January, and by the end of January or February school committee meetings, we will have a recommendation to the school committee whether or not to go through an RFP process or not for outsourcing food service. And last, the issue that arose here at Wellington about a week ago, where there was some smoke, black smoke coming out of the chimney in the middle of the night. I think this is very well reported in the Citizen Herald, a fairly accurate write-up by Cassie Norton. What it came down to is the fact that one of our burners, we have 2 burners, one of them had an incorrect fuel and air mixture, and this caused a lot of carbon buildup in the boiler tubes. The carbon buildup actually is what caused the black smoke coming out of the chimney. The fire department immediately shut down the burner. Amy Wagner and Bob Martin were called. Amy is our principal here, and Bob Martin, supervisor of buildings and grounds. They came out 1:30 in the morning to deal with the situation. They immediately, Bob turned the heating on to the second burner to maintain the building at a decent temperature so that when kids came in on Monday morning, they did not have to face freezing cold conditions. And he also called our contractor who came in on Monday and Tuesday and cleaned out the boiler tubes to get the first burner operational again. However, because the burner tubes are open, the boiler tubes are open, and because there was an excess amount of fuel oil in the boiler room, the smell of the fuel oil lingered, especially on the Orchard Street entrance, which is where the entrance to the boiler room was. We brought in an air quality testing company on Tuesday. They went all through the building testing for carbon monoxide and several other types of gases. All of the readings were negligible. There was no dangerous gases that was coming out of that smell. And for the most part, the smell was limited to the Orchard Street entrance. It did not really get into the classroom wing. It did not really get into any of the classes itself. And we do not think, except for students passing through that entrance, that students were affected by it.
Great. Thanks very much, Jerry. I really appreciate the responsiveness of Jerry and Bob Martin and Amy Wagner. The funny thing about that was a week ago Monday. I'm calling Bob around 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the morning to talk about the weather conditions and whether or not the roads were safe and so on, trying to make that decision on school or late opening or whatever. And Bob said, I just got back home from leaving the Wellington to go back home, so he was pretty familiar with the streets in Belmont at 3 or 4 in the morning. A number of other items to mention to the school committee. One is the Mass School Building Authority. We got our letter saying that we are on the list that they want to talk to. The decision to move 49 schools to the feasibility study phase. They talk about the feasibility study, which will be conducted pursuant to MSBA's regulations, will involve the MSBA collaborating with the district to begin to explore potential solutions to the problems identified in the statement of interest. That's a statement of interest for the Wellington schools. So we were in this process. They gave us some other steps on that. They said that we will be in touch with you soon. They have not yet done that. But initially we anticipated we'd hear from them sometime in November, then perhaps in early December. It's getting very close to the holiday and the holiday break, so I'm not sure if we'll hear from them in December, or perhaps it'll be in January. But anyway, we look forward to working with the MSBA and talking to them about a solution to what we think is a very serious problem and a need for a new building here at the Wellington School. And Jerry has been very involved in this process. Jerry, I don't know if you have any comments you'd like to make on this.
I think the news that we made the cut, we're one of 83 districts out of 162 which made the cut, is very encouraging. I think it puts us on track to consider a debt exclusion sometime in 2008, be it spring or fall. That'll partly be determined by how long the MSBA takes to go through their next 2 steps to, as they call it, confirm the solution that they're going to work out with us. and implement the agreed-upon solution. When they finally go through those 2 steps and approve the funding for the project, we will have 120 days to get local approval. So they set the timetable now, they set the window of opportunity, but we really feel we need to start gearing up to educating the community, which is why we're doing the tours now, not just for Wellington parents, but for parents from other parts of the town, to see what this building is like compared to Urunk. And we're on schedule to try to make people, an educated public, to vote on a possible debt exclusion next year.
Great. Thanks, Jerry. The next item is on the Foundation for Belmont Education, the Learning Excellence Grant Awards for Cycle 1. There are 8 awards totaling just under $21,000. The total amount of money the foundation has awarded to teachers and to the system is just about $1.5 million since 1993. And there are some wonderful special programs and materials and equipment that the foundation has funded. So the school committee has a copy of this. It's also on the website. One of the things that the school does every year on an annual basis is to collect data on where all the students in the town attend schools. Most of those students attend the Belmont Public Schools, but a number of them attend independent schools or private schools inside of Belmont and outside of Belmont. The percent of students in private schools for 07-08 is 11.5%. Another way of saying that is 88.5% attend the public schools. The number is up slightly from last year, but the total, the number in the public schools is up from last year. The total number of students not in public schools, in private schools, is down slightly. There are some minor differences at the elementary and middle school level. The biggest difference is at the high school, where last year 182 students were in private schools, this year 154. So it seems like there's a migration back to the high school from other middle schools or perhaps from other high schools coming back to Belmont High. The 2 other items I want to mention, actually one is an item that happened yesterday, and that's the bomb threat that occurred at the Chenery Middle School. One of the students found not in a classroom, in the men's bathroom, the boys' bathroom on the first floor, written on the wall, a threat of a hidden bomb in the building. That was reported then to administrators. Administrators then reported it to the police. The police came on site. We evacuated the students outside. Then we followed our evacuation plan, or our emergency response plan. The 5th and 6th grade students went to the Burbank. 7th and 8th grade students went to the Wellington. They proceeded down to do that in fairly fast order. They spent the rest of the day, I shouldn't say the rest of the day, until about 1 o'clock they were there. We got some buses on their return trip. They were fed lunches there. Then a number of the students returned. A number of students were picked up by their parents. A number of you in the audience tonight, I suspect, are familiar with that, and perhaps you picked up your children as well. And the students, the first concern that we had, of course, is the safety of the students. We wanted to make sure that students were safe. They were in other schools. They were fed. And any students that were not picked up by their parents, then we brought them back to the middle school around 1 o'clock, and then school dismissed at the regular time, 2:15. In the meantime, while the building was evacuated, the Belmont Police Department and representatives from NEMLAC, which is the Northeastern Massachusetts Law Enforcement Council, 2 bomb detection dogs, went through all the classrooms, the common areas, the hallways, past all the lockers, checked things out. After they did a very thorough search, they had state troopers that are part of this NEMLAC group, came and met with Chief McLaughlin and me and said, as far as they can determine, there's nothing there. So then we said we could bring the students back to the school. I'm extremely grateful for the outstanding support of the Belmont Police Department. They were really terrific. We've got great support from them all along, but Chief McLaughlin, Assistant Chief Lane, Rick Santangelo, I can't remember exactly what his title is, and I apologize for that. Officer Barry Ward, there were a number of other officers there as well, and they were very, very helpful to us. Also, I want to thank the teachers, the students, very cooperative in this whole process. assistant principals, Heidi Johnson and Bill Grubb. Custodians were terrific. They were there the whole time. They helped the state police out as we went through, and the police as they go through the building. Bob Martin, of course, was instrumental through the whole process. Paul Brown brought food for the teachers as well as for the officers that were there. Jerry Missel helped to coordinate the busing and worked in checking with the elementary schools where the students went. And so altogether, that part went very well. Now, I would say that I sent a note out to the parents. Debbie Alexander, the headmaster at the middle school, sent a note out to parents today. I've gotten about 25 or 30 emails back so far. I suspect there will be more. Most of them have two messages to me. We're glad that all the kids were safe, and we have these suggestions for you the next time this happens. Of course, I'm hoping there is not a next time. I'm hoping that was our last time that this happens, but obviously in a school setting you have to take these things very seriously, and we do. But we will work on evaluating the procedures and trying to make sure that we make them better each time. So we're very serious about that. We will meet tomorrow, Thursday, the administrators meet. One of the pieces of agenda that we're going to take a look at, and we'll have Chief McLaughlin, Assistant Chief Lane in with us, is to take a look at the procedures that we have and see which ways that we can make them even better. One of the things we need to look at is the emergency telephone system, calling system. Some parents, a number of parents had suggested we use that. One of the things about that is we weren't confident that we had the right numbers for everyone. So we want to try to make sure that we've got all the numbers on that they're accurate, and then utilize that system in the future. The other part of that is that our email listservs, we just checked that. We have 3,800 kids in the system, and we have, I think, 6,200. Where's Lee's here tonight? I think 6,200, 6,300 email addresses. So a number of people, we have two email addresses for the family, our work address and home address too. We were more confident that those numbers were up to date, but as people pointed out, a lot of times people don't check their email that regularly, and the emergency calling system is a more direct way to get it. Nonetheless, everyone's safe. Hopefully we'll be able to perfect our procedures, and we hope that there's not another time that this happens. And then finally, every year, Eileen Winslow, who's a grade 1 teacher at the Burbank, sends me Thanksgiving Day recipes. Well, I got this after we had already had our school committee meeting in November, but the school committee is in luck because I'm going to share with you some recipes. Just a few. Go buy a turkey, stuff the turkey with corn, put it in the oven for 1 hour at 90 degrees. When it's done, you eat it. Put a potato and squash in a turkey, cook the whole thing for 6 minutes at 7 degrees. Dump tomato juice in the sink, put in 14 cups of water, cook it for 15 minutes in the sink, I guess. These are really great. I mean, these are first graders, by the way. Pick the corn in the cornfield, wash it off, cook it in your house in a pan on the stove, cook it for 15 minutes. First, get mashed potatoes and cook them. Then add a dash of pepper. Put pumpkin seeds in it and cook it another day. Beat it with a spoon, and it's squash. Thought that was particularly good. Get 10 potatoes, cook them in the oven for 1/2 hour at 80 degrees. Then you mash them with a metal hammer, like the one my mother uses to pound meat. Then you put a cup of salt on the mashed potatoes. Just don't tell your cardiologist. And there are a lot of other good ideas in here, too. Thank you, Eileen, and it's always a pleasure getting recipes from the children. That's everything, John.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Holland. Next up is the chairman's report. A couple of brief items, since we're a little bit off schedule. First, I'd like to thank Amy for allowing us to, Amy Wagner, principal of the Wellington, for allowing us to impose on her to hold our meeting here and give tours. So thank you very much, Amy. Second I have is just remember that the Foundation's spring dinner fundraiser is April 12th, and the theme is technology, T-cubed, teaching technology and some other T.
Teaching tools for teachers.
Teaching
Technology tools.
Technology tools for teachers. Most of you probably got a postcard about that in the last couple of weeks. April 5th. Sorry. Not on my Palm Pilot, darn. On January 23rd, the middle school will have National History Day. That's an annual thing. It's a big hit, and we are still looking for people to be judges. So if anybody on the school committee, or I guess maybe any parents in the audience would be interested in being a judge for that, it's January 23rd, a Wednesday. Runs 7:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. We'd appreciate that. It's a very interesting time with the students. And lastly, our very own Catherine Roush of Belmont High School was named All-Scholastic by the Boston Herald. She won they named her MVP for the second year in a row, which is pretty unique in its own, and she's a defender for the Belmont High soccer team. So defenders usually don't win MVPs, and she got it 2 years in a row. So that says a lot about her accomplishments on the field. I think that's it for the chair. Scott. Two of us you might notice, are missing from the school committee. Scott Stratford's spending a week or two in India. I don't think he's investigating outsourcing anything for the school system. His daughter, a recent Belmont grad, is spending a semester in India. And Diane Stafford is at a work commitment that she could not rearrange to get out of. I think that's it. Okay, now we're off to our main part of our agenda, which is a citizens' concerns. Oh, citizens' concerns first. Citizens' concerns. If anyone has concerns that are not on the agenda, now is an appropriate time to bring them to the attention of the school committee. Excellent. Seeing none. Move on to the main part of the agenda is a report on special education. I'd like to invite Ken Kramer to come up, our Director of Student Services.
Is Bernadette going to, why don't you come up here, Ken? Is Bernadette going to come up too, or? Sure. Chair, okay. We have another chair over here for Bernadette, or we can put one over this way too. Just as a little bit of introduction, each year we invite the Director of Student Services, which covers special education and guidance, to come and talk to the school committee to give an update on the programs and what's happening in this area. Special education is a very important part of what we do in the Belmont Public Schools, and we want to make sure that the school committee and the public understand some of the new initiatives that are ongoing. So I'm pleased that Ken and Bernadette are here with us tonight to share some information with us.
All the school committee members got a copy of the...
They did.
Yes, we do.
I'm going to move through the exhibits. The first part of the packet that the school committee received was a grid format overview of our coordinated program review. These were the sections of the regulations that the school district received citations in. The citations were all for partial implementation parts of those regulations. And this details our corrective actions that were required by DOE and the timeline for us to report on those corrective actions. Our first deadline, which was actually our primary deadline for the bulk of this, had to be done by November 7th. And on November 7th, we submitted our report to DOE. This is my copy of the report, so it was pretty extensive. It involved a lot of retraining of staff in regards to certain regulations and procedures. We did not view it as anything terribly monumental. It was really updating all of our staff on a lot of the new forms and regulations that were put in place to IDEA and the reauthorization of the state regulations a few years back.
Ken, could you speak a little more? I can't hear you back there.
Sure. Is this better?
Yeah.
That better? Sorry about that.
I actually have a question.
Sure.
I believe I sat in on the coordinated program review when they were here, and it's interesting because when it's laid out on paper like this, the list seems quite long.
Right.
But my impression from that meeting was that this is actually a short list compared with what some of the other school districts are faced with after the coordinated program review. Could you comment on that? Am I right? Am I wrong? How do you feel about how we did?
Right. In my experiences in other districts, I believe that we did very well. If you review what's written on the script, I think you're pretty accurate. When it's laid out like this, it does look like it's a lot. But a lot of these, all they required was really updating of staff on the regulations. And Belmont did not receive any citations for not implementing anything. It was really partial implementation of all of the regulations where we were cited. And it was primarily that staff either didn't remember or were not trained or were not updated. And so that's really what we had to do in response to, I would say, about 80–90% of these. We put it in this format so it was easy for the principals to understand, for the staff members to understand, and then when we conducted the training, we referenced this. It was a nice, quick and easy way for people to take a look at it. And actually, Bernadette did all of this work. Any other questions on this coordinated program?
Can you put a dollar figure on what it costs us to comply, or is that just too hard to do?
No, actually, initially when you see citations, we contemplate hiring some of our attorneys to bring them in, and when we actually went through what was written here and the regulations, we thought it was very straightforward, and it was information that normally a supervisor would be providing. And Bernadette and I were able to provide the bulk of the training, so we so far have not had to spend any money on updating stuff.
Like, how often do the coordinated program reviews occur? How often does the state come in and look at what's going on?
The state reviews us every 6 years, and then there's a mid-cycle review. So we have another report deadline in February. So there are 2 or 3 remaining documentation pieces that we need to provide the state. And hopefully we won't be hearing from them for another few years, and they will come in and do a mid-cycle review. When they do the mid-cycle review, they typically focus on these issues first. That's what they're looking for. And then pretty much they don't do an overall review of our compliance at that point.
Do they give you feedback on what you've submitted to them?
They do give us feedback, and they sent a report back saying that everything we submitted for special ed was accepted as is. There was one reference to we need to provide further documentation for another one in February, but that was already pointed out to us when they gave us the citation to begin with. So we weren't clear if that was just their way of saying, this is just a reminder, we need an update on this in February. The next piece of information you have in your packets is the overall numbers for Belmont. And I kept the same format that Sally had provided for the last couple of years so that we can reference our current numbers in regards to the 2 years previously. You can see that our enrollment in the district has gone up, 99 students since last year. Our special ed numbers went down. We were at 525 last year, we're at 507. And I apologize, but it looked like Excel was not set up properly, so that 11% is inaccurate. We're about 13% of our students are in special ed. I can't really account for why our numbers went down, but they're relatively consistent when you look at the percentages in that we're still around 13–14%. The next page in your packets lists overall enrollment trends and special ed for the state. And as you can see, they're relatively flat. I do want to draw your attention to where it dips. You see a little bit of a dip in 2000, and that's where the regulations changed. That's where we went from maximum feasible benefit to free and appropriate education, and the state required the identification of a disability. So there was a drop there. 2002, 2003 is very misleading. The state lost and did not collect a good portion of data for quite a few months, and then decided in their infinite wisdom they were going to report out anyway. So you really have to discount those 2 years there. So as you can see, the trend went down a bit, given the change in the regulations. But still, mostly around the state, most districts are at about 16%, and we're at 13, 14%.
What's your view on why our percentage is lower than the average?
Well, the quick answer is I don't know. I think that what we've tried to do anyway in the last year, there was a big push by Sally prior to me, but then Sally and I last year, and we continue that this year, Bernadette and I. One of the facets of special ed that we're supposed to implement prior to picking students up on IEPs is a response to intervention piece. What also happened with the reauthorization of IDEA in 2004 was that we're now allowed to use a certain amount of special ed monies to provide that level of intervention. So that basically means you can use, say, a learning center for a student who might be on a 504, or maybe you have a question about whether or not they just need a sort of a spot intervention, as opposed to the only way to serve a student is to pick them up on an IEP.
Ken, do you have any idea how many kids in town are in 504?
I don't offhand. The next page in your packet is the cost trends for the state. As you can see, those have increased pretty dramatically. The only relief on that page is noted is circuit breaker. And that really just speaks to what we get back from the state for our out-of-district placements. But because costs have risen so much, it's incumbent upon us to try to take a look at how best we can provide services for all of our students in a way that's as effective as possible, but also as cost-effective as possible. The next page, we have an overview of why some of these costs have increased. There have been advances in medical technology. We've had deinstitutionalization of special needs children, privatization of services, consequences of higher percentage of children living in poverty, increase in families experiencing social and economic stress, and there's been, of course, a dramatic rise in the diagnosis of autism and prevalence of autism. In our district, what we've tried to do is develop programs in response to that. We have very good programming for our autism in our preschool and through our contract with early intervention. And a few years ago, we developed our in-house programs for socio-emotional and behavioral needs. On the next page, you've been provided with a description of the socio-emotional and behavioral programs. We have one of those at every level. We have the Bridge program at the elementary level, the Opportunity program at the middle school, and the Campus program. And just to give you an idea of the benefits of serving those students within our own district, the following page gives you some of the highlights of that. Across the district, we're serving 25 students within our socio-emotional support programs. Additionally, at Belmont High School, the Campus PM program is providing added emotional support and academic services to as many as 8 to 10 students each afternoon. We run that program 4 afternoons each week from 2:30 to 5:30. This year, we had 2 students returned to our in-house programs from out-of-district placements. That saved the district $145,000 for tuition and transportation. In addition to that, 1 student was able to transition from another out-of-district placement to use a combination of campus program and additional contract services, and that saved us another $29,000. Currently, there are meetings being held with parents and IEP teams looking at the return of 2 additional students, which would save the district another $96,000. That does not include our transportation costs for those students. Transportation costs typically run $15,000 to $18,000 a student a year. That's just basic transportation. It can run higher if we have to add a monitor to the run. On the following page, you see just a brief blurb of the reality. A significant factor in the increase in cost has been the rapid rise of children with moderate and serious disabilities in early intervention and preschool programs. And then the two following pages are graphs that give the early intervention trends statewide. And you can see that these have not dipped at any point. And the next page is the graph of the preschool trends. And that dipped those 2 years. The state lost the data. But in spite of that, you can see that really hasn't gone down a heck of a lot either. In response, the school district has provided our own in-house programming. The last graph you have in this package shows that there's been an increase in the number of autism cases, 805% increase from 1992 to 2003.
Is that the entire country or Belmont?
That's the entire country. Within Belmont, what we've tried to do in response to that, you see on the following page, is some of the descriptions of our programming. This year alone, we're going to have to add preschool capacity starting in January. We won't be able to wait till the fall of next year. And as of the fall of next year, we'll be adding preschool capacity and another classroom for autism. So we're looking at adding the additional preschool class at the Winbrook and adding our second autism spectrum classroom, our K4 program, will be hopefully at the Burbank. There is space over there, but that's been following up on that. That pretty much covers it. That's the overview of special ed. Are there any questions?
Where are you adding the program at Winbrook physically?
We are in the process of working with Janet. However, we're looking, it's just going to be a morning session. And there is a room that's used for extended kindergarten. That's just used in the afternoon, so it might just work out perfectly.
Ken, who does monitor the 504 programs? I know it's a federal program versus the state, but is it guidance that keeps track of 504 plans?
Yeah, technically there was a question about the 504 programs and who monitors those. Technically the 504 programs, because they're considered regular education, they come under the purview of the building principal, and then the building principal can delegate that. Usually guidance heads up the 504 teams, and because they often involve student services anyway, they do come under Bernadette and myself.
I just wonder if there was an uptick in 504s when there was a downtick in the state plans.
In my experience, initially, there usually is in districts in response to the change in the regulations.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anything else?
Laurie has a question in the back.
When you were talking about the
Come up to the
action
microphone.
plan, it did look like a lot of the issues were training. Has that training all taken place?
Yes.
And was that throughout all the schools? Was it just specific teachers? Did everybody have the same training, in other words?
Yeah, we had two primary training responsibilities. The bulk of it was the professional staff, our teachers. But we did have a piece where we were required to provide a more formalized training for our professional aides. And what we did was take the October 9th release day, and all of the special ed staff were trained at that point, as well as the professional aides. We provided, we actually contracted out, Sally Smith provided the training for the professional aides, and Bernadette and I trained the staff.
And so then the follow-up, sort of the benchmark, that would be the reporting, sort of the test reports that you're sending to the DOE, where they'll say 10 IEPs are sent to the DOE to overview and see whether they're
Correct.
responsible.
Yes, typically what we're required to do is random sampling at that point. For many districts, DOE has that requirement because they don't necessarily run the way Belmont does. What we do here is all of the IEPs are submitted to the principals. They're reviewed by the principals, and they come up to the central office, and Bernadette and I review them and sign off on them as well. So we're actually able to see before the IEP goes out if everything and all of the documentation is there. So for us, the random sampling is pretty much ongoing because every new meeting and every new packet of material is coming across our desk.
And I have one question that's not about the coordinated review precisely, but it's our understanding that there's a new policy in Belmont that people can't tape a team meeting. And I was just sort of wondering what was the impetus of that, what sort of precipitated that, and if that, do you think that that's going to be able to help people sort of communicate more with the teachers and with the team? If that is the new policy, how are you going to let parents know about that change ahead of time before the team meeting?
Well, first off, it's not a policy because it wasn't anything that ran through the school committee. We were getting a lot of requests for taping meetings. Unfortunately, what happens is when you tape a meeting, we're required to tape as well. That tape is required to be part of the permanent record, and then we're required to store that for as long as we keep the permanent record. It's become fairly cumbersome, but districts are not required to allow taping. They are required to have a response if a parent requests. We didn't have one. So one of the pieces I've been working on in conjunction with the staff, Bernadette and Pat and Peter, is a procedure manual. The taping was part of that, as well as any other written procedures that special ed staff could benefit from. So as issues are coming up, we're trying to develop a procedure for addressing it. The taping issue came up a bit, so we consulted with council and came up with a taping procedure that seemed to accommodate everybody's needs. What we have done in response to parents who are not familiar with it, certainly all the liaisons at this point are familiar with it. They have a copy of it. All the principals have it. If a parent shows up to a meeting, as was the case initially on the first day, actually, and expects to be able to tape because that was something that they were used to doing, we certainly allowed them to tape for that meeting. It wasn't designed to be preventative or obstructive, just so that we could have a response that worked for the district as well as parents.
I was wondering if perhaps when you send out to the parents a list of the people who are going to be attending the meeting and who's expected to be there, if maybe there could be something sort of like a parent rights, just a checklist of these are things that we expect, you know, if you want to bring in somebody in, please let us know, that sort of thing, so that there's communication ahead of time and people aren't just taken aback.
I think that might be a good idea. We can look into that.
Thanks, Laurie. I want to thank Ken and Bernadette for coming tonight. We will bring them back again toward the end of the year, April, May, June, to talk to us again about the program. It's a very large part of what we do. It's a very important part of what we do in our school system, and we want to make sure that the public and particularly the school committee has a chance to ask questions about this. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim.
Thank you.
Next up on the agenda is the reason why most of you are here, is the report from the kindergarten task force. So what's the best way to do this? Have Bruce come?
Yeah, have Bruce and Janet
Have
come
Bruce
up.
and Bruce McDonald and Janet Carey, the principals of Butler and Winbrook,